Welcome to the REI Diamonds Show with Dan Breslin, your source for real estate investment jewels of wisdom.
Welcome to the REI Diamond Show. I'm your host, Dan Breslin, and this is episode 126 with Saul Z on leveling up in real estate. Saul started off as an appraiser, moved up to an agent, then moved up to fixing and flipping houses, and is now doing anywhere from 5 to 10 fix and flip deals per month. So he's doing some volume. Saul is even starting to get into some larger commercial deals, like a recent deal on some industrial space of somewhere in the 76,000 square foot range, as well as some mobile home parks, and he's got his eye out for some more. Saul and I have done a few dozen deals together over the past few years here in Chicago together and also in Miami. So this episode will be unique in that it's a bit more of a conversation between business partners than an interview. In addition to discussing the market and a couple big deals, Saul also shares how he finances all of these fix and flip deals. So if you're interested in funding and flipping deals or more deals than you currently are, you will definitely want to take notes. Ready to get started? All right, Mr. Saul Z, welcome to the call. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing good. So this is unique for me, for you. Normally the podcast guests who come on have the opportunity to basically explore everything a little bit online, whatever people publish. Do some research on LinkedIn, maybe their website, and then everything is brand new and fresh, and it's a real discovery mode, when we have our episode. But today, being a friend of mine, Saul, business partner, we've done quite a few deals together over the course of the last couple of years here, fellow Chicago fix and flip investor. I know much more about your background, being a friend, being a business partner, et cetera, than I do about most guests. So I'm interested to see that the tone and the direction that our interview and time here today takes. But for those listening right now who don't already know who you are, Saul, can you give us the back history, the Reader's Digest of where you got into real estate and what your career looked like up until where you're at today and what kind of deals and business you're doing today?
Yeah, so I got into real estate in 2003. I got in as a real estate appraiser. I had a friend who had a mortgage company. At that time, I was in UIC studying economics, and mortgage was booming at that time, and he had overflow of appraisal orders. So I quickly got my real estate appraiser's license, and I started doing appraisals for that mortgage company. And eventually I transitioned to selling houses as an agent. And then 2006, I opened up my brokerage, real estate brokerage. Then it went through foreclosure, wave of being a REO broker, then buying properties as acquisition broker for hedge funds. And in the meantime, I was flipping some single family homes, and 2010, 11, 12, I started transitioning more and more on the investment side, and right now pretty much my 90% focus is fix and flip single families. I don't do much brokerage anymore. We still do have brokerage. It just my focus is right now mostly on investment side. I've sold in my career over 2,000 properties. Currently, right now, we buy between 5 and 10 a month, and majority we fix and flip. That's pretty much where I'm at right now.
So you progress throughout the course of history, and you start graduating to the next level. You probably observe things as an appraiser and say, oh, wow, look, these agents, I'm making whatever, $400 or $500 an appraisal. These agents are going to closing and they're making $2,000-3,000. I want to get on that side. And then you get on that side and you look around and you're paying up to the broker, whatever the percentage was. And you're like, well, I want to get on that side. And you keep kind of moving up the food chain, if you will, as far as like dollar amount and positioning. I think it's important for people listening to like observe that and wonder, where am I at in that place in my own career? I know I'm still wondering that right now, and we do, 200 deals per year or so in the 3 markets that we're in, and I'm always looking around too to figure out where's the next, progression and where's the next step for me in my investment career. So 90% single family fix and flips, and what's the other 10%, and what would be the next thing you're kind of looking around at, grasping for, next level up, Saul, for you?
Yeah. So, on the same note, I'm a partner in a title company. I'm a partner in a mortgage company as well. So we try to service a customer who is in the real estate transaction from every single angle. So that's another revenue source or pillar we're trying to build and provide a better service for our clients. But talking about the other percentage of my focus, where it's going, it's focusing on a larger deals. And recently I've closed on an industrial space, 76,000 square feet industrial space. And when we looked at the numbers, when it was said and done, we bought it, fixed it, and we kept it after refinancing. The amount of cash flow we generated, the same amount as almost 80 single family homes. So, moving forward, my natural progression will be not expanding, transaction count on single family. I know that number is still going to be growing, but the focus will be not to grow exponentially that transaction amount, but grow the volume amount and just doing more bigger deals. I have right now a mobile home park under contract. I'm underwriting, more and more commercial deals, industrial spaces, warehouses, multifamily apartments. So that's kind of my head and where it's going to, because for me, just building confidence and taking those deals down. And as soon as we have 1 or 2 under the belt, it becomes not so difficult. I know how scary it was to take down the first flip when I bought it at the sheriff auction for $86,000 in DuPage County. It was a condo, and when I compare it now, when we took down that industrial complex, it was probably the same amount of uncertainty when you're doing something the first time. But once you do it, it's not really such a big difference. It's just more zeros at the end. It's not really rocket science, I think.
Yeah, true enough. So I think my own observation just over the last year or two. So you got in 2003, I got in 2006. So we're 10, 15 years into the business, and now getting to a point where I think that confidence is something, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's people whose story, Saul, is like they just jump right in and all of a sudden they're doing $5 million, $10 million deals on, multifamily deal, and they're just like totally comfortable with it. For me, I grew up in a neighborhood where the house I grew up in is probably worth $170,000 right now if it was renovated. So like my first couple of flips like that, I felt safe. I didn't buy that. That was my parents' house, but I felt safe in a neighborhood where the house is sold for about half that, $85,000, $100,000. And then we started doing some deals. I got some partners with $100,000, $200,000. And like when we would flip a house and it would be like $300,000 for like a long time, it sort of felt like they were expensive, and it was like big risk because we were borrowing $180,000, $220,000 to make that back. I bought a bunch of single family properties, and it was just because I felt safe buying at $70,000, $80,000, $65,000. Luckily, I've seen them go up, and I have some that I bought for $440,000. So, the bigger deals right now, they're also still small residential deals, but I've noticed that my mind and my comfort level and my confidence, like you talked about, like that psychology as an investor, I'm seeing the benefit in that, that $400,000 mortgage I had to take out on that property in Humboldt Park in Chicago. It's it's paying down at like a faster rate than my low end 4 or 5 different separate deals. And there's like more tax advantages to it. There's less maintenance costs if I add up the 5 or 6 houses that equal the same amount of value that one is. And as the neighborhood rises in value there, it's like I'm seeing the bigger numbers add up faster. However, I was in no position a few years back to take down a deal like that. So as the progression happens, I'm also looking, to the next larger deal for those larger payouts. Could we talk about the mobile home park? Like, we dive a little bit into that deal, Saul?
Yeah. So I'm still in due diligence. So I'm almost past all due diligence. I still didn't take it down. My closing is, I think, in like 45 days. But yeah, I found this deal on Little MLS in Southern Illinois, and that's 31 spot, a mobile home park. That's mom and pop shop, mom and pop mobile home park, and the cap rate on that is about 19 cap. So once it's said and done, after mortgage, it will probably cash flow a year, probably close to $40,000. And it has potential for me to increase rent about $50 on every single lot. And so right now I'm buying at $300,000, and potentially I will probably, after raising rents in about 2 years, it's going to be easily worth between $550 and $6 in about 2 years, and it's already at 19 cap on existing numbers. Yeah, it's not in Chicago. It's about 2 hours away from Chicago, so there's not too. It's too small of a deal for big institutional investors, because mobile home parks right now is really appealing investment for big trusts and hedge funds, and it became lately very, very attractive investment. But everything what is below $1 million, it's still too small for institutional investors, but it's still a little bit too big for maybe single family, small investors. So I think that space is also very interesting for me, because there is a really, really good returns you still can see in those investments, and also it's not management intensive. There is so little management required to manage mobile home park compared to apartment building or single family, because normally you just own the lot. You rent out those lots under those mobile home parks, and homes itself, they're owned by residents who live in those parks. That's another asset class I'm looking at right now, and and they're still out there.
Nice. Who's going to manage this deal?
Yeah, so I inspected this property, and there are, a couple residents who are long, they live there for a long time. I found a few who are candidates who want to help out to manage the property. And most likely I'm just going to make one of them to live free over there. And really, in terms of management, you're managing only the water. You have to comply with EPA that the water is going to be good and drinkable water. There's going to be no bacteria or anything like that. You have to manage the sewer, and you have to manage collections. And there is not really much more management like in apartment building, because all the everything if anything goes wrong in a home itself, that's not your responsibility. So collections, you typically can let's say open an account in a local bank and ask for the tenants to deposit the deposits in that local bank, all the rents, or you can put a box, like in a metal box, and ask for your manager on the property to just to take out those checks once a month. I'm most likely going to open an account in that local bank, and all the tenants will have to just deposit the 8 checks in that local bank. Really, there's very little management. So I interviewed a current owner of that park. He shows up at that park maybe like once a month, and that's pretty much it. You'll be surprised, but there's very little management in a mobile home park compared to any other investment. It's probably close to a commercial industrial property if you compare like, how intensive it is. But yeah, really, I'm going to have just only one of the residents to help me to collect rents. And that's pretty much it, because those residents live there for a long time. You have to understand that when they have their own home, that home is on wheels, but then it is put on the side, and it's cost money for them to move. So those tenants don't really move. They don't move like an apartment building. You release that apartment building 25% a year. No, it's not happening like that over there. Once you have residents in, they stay there, 5, 7, 10 years. Some of them 20. They spend for a long time, as long as you maintain the park a little bit. To the standard that it's not your, Ritz-Carlton hotel amenities, anything like that. You have to understand, what's going on in mobile home park. But as long as there is no crime, and those mobile home parks right now, they have quite a big demand, because it's still less expensive than to live than in an apartment for those residents. So it's a very interesting investment. I started testing it, but it looks appealing to me.
So I knew a guy who set up the bank account, and he trained all of his tenants. And at the time, he had like 120 properties under management. And he came up with this system to track who paid what particular rent by making each person's rent end in like a specific code. So if the guy was going to pay, $500 in rent, he would do $500 and, 1 cent would be that rent. And there would be the next guy would be $527 and 3 cents. So, he would have tons and tons of these deposits, but they had to make that specific, the change on the deposit was actually the code that identified the tenant, because you might have 6, 7, 8 tenants at $1,000 each. And that was how he was able to track them jumping into the bank account. So it was a way where if you got 31 tenants all depositing roughly the same amount of rent, how do you know which deposit came from which person? I mean, you can go in and, I guess, check the images of the deposits on each one, but that was one way that he had it done, so that they could even go in cash and make their deposit as long as they deposited that exact amount. And you instruct the tenants to keep the receipt, because the tenants who aren't paying are going to be scammy and try to come up with something. And one problem that he ran into, and I'll share this with you and for anyone listening who's thinking of the same idea, is he had an unscrupulous tenant. He didn't know which one it was, but he had to share the bank account information so they could make the deposit into that account with the account number. I don't know if there's a way to have them do the deposit without the account number, but they had the account number, and they set up an ACH withdrawal, and they were paying their phone bill out of the account for the rents. So I imagine maybe there's a way for somebody to set up ACHs, and you would be wise to remove the money instantaneously out of that account so that your risk was very minimal, to kind of make the ease of management through that system work.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's a great tip. Yeah. And actually, that's awesome, because I was wondering how I'm going to track, people who pay cash, because I thought I'm going to track and manage just looking at the image when check cash. Was when if they pay cash, I thought I'm just gonna ask them to write down their name on their deposit slip, but that's actually a better idea. You can make $200.20 the rent, and or maybe you want to just 217 for example, slot 17, it's gonna be $200.17. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you can label them all. So. All right, cool. Back to the house flipping business. That is, from what I'm aware, your big bread and butter, the money producer right now. You're buying 5 to 10 deals a month. What does the financing structure look like? How do you take down 5, 6, 7, 8 flips in a month and then manage that as well? Is this private money? Are you using hard money? Is this all your own cash? What does the particulars of your financing structure look like?
Yeah, so we have 3 tiers of capital. So the first capital is our capital. We have in play about $1 million of our own capital. And then we have private money. Right now we have probably about like 1.5, I would say, a little bit more in private money. And private money is 10%. We pay 10% to our investors, and we pay we 10% as our investors pay quarterly, and they get first position on the mortgage on the note when they're buying the house. And once we tap out of that, we have Genesis Capital, and they're out of San Francisco, and they funding us here in Chicago. Their rates also right 9 to 10, a couple points. Yeah, so pretty much we typically don't tap out of the capital. We have more capital than we have properties right now. But yeah, it's fairly easy. Once we tap out from our money, we use private money, pay quarterly. For private money, we take when we buy it, we buy it 100% of the purchase price, and then we do rehabs with our own money. When we use Genesis Capital, they fund 90% of purchase and 80% of rehab. So that's our capital structure.
Nice. Now, at one point in time, didn't you set up a fund and use the fund's money as like the reserve and some of the stuff with Genesis, or was that like a discarded, too complicated and risky situation?
That's a little too risky situation. Yeah, that's a little too risky situation. So yeah, when we raise money from investors, they just wire the money to our company, Rising Neighborhood Homes, and that we don't have a fund that is registered with SEC or anything like that. If we decide to commingle money, then we'll have to register that with SEC, whether 503C or whatever it's called. But right now, since we give a mortgage on every individual property, when I talk to attorneys, it seems like we don't have to register that with SEC, and we're just raising money just by giving first mortgage position on the note.
Yeah, and that's exactly how we've been running it. So it's the same way. So that there's probably something to be said to say, raise $500,000 from investors, pay for the Reg D proposal or whatever the documents are to be registered as the exemption, and then using the $500,000 to like kind of co-leverage with the Genesis Capital hard money way. But to me, it felt like there were too many moving pieces to get to that place. And I'm paying like 2 points and 10% interest on the same structure to my private lenders. All of those lenders have to be accredited investors. Like, we don't take money from, my uncle who doesn't have his money in savings. He's like taking out a mortgage on his house to invest in my deal. Like, no, I want to make sure the people funding my deals are in, they have the business investing. Like, I don't want my investor losing sleep because like he borrowed against his house to put the money in play. And I know there's people doing that to like leverage their equity, put the equity to work. I just don't encourage that. I'm a little more conservative. So I prefer that I'm dealing with people who have that cash in their IRA, who have that cash in their bank account, who are not, desperate for me to be making a monthly or a quarterly interest payment to them so that they can then pay the payment on the loan they took out to invest in this money. That's just not my business model at all. And ours is definitely a one investor per property model. 2 points and 10% interest is roughly what I'm being charged by some of the hard money guys that are out here. And too, we're covering rehabs out of our pocket. A lot of times, I don't know. I mean, for me, the decision is it's more of a hassle to go and have like the 3 inspection draws from the hard money company to then reimburse the money I had to put out for the rehab as well. Like, I'm going to do the rehab. The rehab is going to be done, and then I'm going to sell the property and get my cash back like almost as fast as it was going to take me to have the hard money inspector come out and give me the drawback, right?
Yeah, and on the same note, I want to show that I have some skin in the game in the property as well, because investors who work with us, I think they want to see that we also have our capital in there, and we whether it's going to be Genesis or other investors, they want to see that we have our capital in, and I was in 2008, 2009, and I see what happened. We survived that, and we survived because we were a little more conservative. I'm sure 2008 is not coming anytime soon, but we have corrections. And I think once you have maybe too much confidence or you don't have enough capital and of your own capital, I think sometimes you can be reckless. And so pretty much, we do the same thing. We fund rehab typically for our own money. Very often they'll say we close the deals with Genesis, and we, even though when we submit the deal to Genesis, we ask for the capital to purchase the property, but also we ask for rehab money. But for the most part, we never draw that capital out for rehab money because we're finishing rehab so quickly, so fast, and we're just closing it, and we just never use the rehab holdback. So.
Gotcha. So if anyone noticed, neither Saul or myself are being paid by Genesis, but a lot of people are using Genesis. They're well known. I mean, you're getting to closing in what type of time frame with Genesis when you use them on a project?
They close within 2 weeks. I would say if you have all the ducks in a row, you close in 2 weeks, approximately, I would say.
Nice. All right, cool. So as far as, 2008, and I'm of the same mindset, I look at numbers as an example. I don't have them right in front of me, but in Atlanta, there were building starts, and they were published in the Atlanta Business Chronicle. I believe it was in 2006, the number was at like 76,000. That was like the height of the building permits issued, seemingly for new construction for brand new inventory, new houses to be built in 2006. At the height of our building boom that we just came out of, meaning like 2016, 2017, I believe the numbers were about half that. They were around 35, 36,000. They may have gotten to 40,000 in one of those years. I don't recall. But the moral of the story, another number I noticed too, while I'm on that topic, is Philadelphia deed transfers in the height, meaning like 2002, 3, 2004, 2005, 2006. They were, I believe, triple the number that we've seen even coming through the last 3 years when the market's been, quote unquote, on fire by some people's definition. So if 3 times the properties were transferring, the numbers were 3 times as big for properties changing hands back in the bubble. The numbers for building in Atlanta is still a red hot market, so you would expect the numbers to kind of be outsized a little bit right now coming out of the market we're in. But those numbers were double what they were now in that last boom. So I just don't see the buildup and the overbuilding and the inventory, flood and the number of transactions taking place that happened then to set the stage for something like 2008. That said, the interest rates are rising. The inventory is taking a little longer to sell. You must have a top-notch premium product in a relatively desirable low inventory area to sell the property quick. We see a lot of, properties selling and flattening off and taking a little bit longer to sell right now. So is there anything that you've done in the Chicagoland area, Saul, to modify your targeting on the properties that you're actually taking down and flipping? Or have you not had to adjust your sites at all because they were already conservative?
We definitely adjusted a little bit, but I track typically, 3 numbers: supply, demand, and affordability. You see the danger when all those 3 numbers are not in line. Definitely right now we have interest rates are rising and affordability is not as good as it was like 2 years ago. But supply and demand, there's still in favor saying that, I don't see that anything catastrophic is going to happen. We have still very low supply of inventory compared to historically, and demand is still fairly strong. Now I see a much lesser demand compared to 2 years ago on more expensive properties, or what we call $500,000 and above. So we're focusing right now to buy property that we can rehab and sell below $350,000, $400,000 max. So technically we're targeting that the first-time buyer. We definitely don't want to buy anything that tailors to a move-up retail buyer. So everything what is like up to $350,000 rehab, I still see it's still flying pretty quickly as long as you have good quality product. You can't really right now just do a small touch up, carpet paint, whatever was happening 2 years ago. You have to put a little bit more emphasis on the quality compared to a couple of years ago. And for us, it's just focusing on the properties that are less than 350, I think.
Nice. Where or what metric, what numbers are you looking at to determine supply and demand? And are you looking at those like on a zip code level, a county level, an entire metro city level? Are you looking at those before each property that you buy to look at the micro market? And where do you go to find those numbers, Saul?
Oh, well, I have access to MLS, so I look at them MRED. But underwriting so many properties, I kind of know exactly where the inventory is high, where the inventory is low. It's pretty much, we focus in mostly in Cook County and DuPage County. There's only pockets of Cook County that has, high inventory levels than normal. And typically that's municipalities with a higher taxes, not only Chicago City, but even suburbs. But yeah, where I track it, I just look at MLS and MRED. I'm licensed agent. I have access to that. But yeah, if you use Zillow or anything like that, the way you calculate it is you just look at how many homes that they sold in the last 6 months in that particular area, and you divide that number from active listings right now on the market. So let's say if there is 10 homes on the market and there are 3 homes have sold not in 6 months but in 12 months, it means there is right now 3 months of inventory. So it means it's going to take 3 months to actually it's vice versa. Yeah, it's vice versa. If there are let's say 12 homes that sold in 12 months, it means there is 1 month is selling every single month. And if we have right now 3 homes on the market, it means they're going to take 3 months to sell all those homes. So this is just easier way to calculate it. But if you access the MLS, you can just track it. That inventory level's over there.
Gotcha. Hey, Saul, if you had 2 people asking you for a book recommendation, one was just getting started in real estate business somehow, what book would you recommend to them? And let's say I ask you for a book recommendation, a little bit more advanced, what would be a book recommendation that you would make for me?
All right. So if someone who is starting, my first book was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think that's a classic book, and it taught me a lot. If you would ask me for a book recommendation, I'll probably pick something from classic too. I don't know if you read, but you probably did. It was Think and Grow Rich. I think that's was one of my favorite books that inspired me to think big and build business and grow business. I think, if you haven't read that one, I would suggest that to read it to you.
Yep. Think and Grow Rich. It's funny. I just made that recommendation to a few other people on my team. One of the guys who runs our call center, Josh, I think I was just talking about this on a recent episode. He found the book in the bookstore, like a used bookstore. He was just wandering around in the city, downtown Chicago. And he's like, I was going to buy this book and I didn't get it. And he texted me a picture and he was almost like looking for like permission or validation in a sense. This is almost going back a year now. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, you should. I totally forgot about that one. You should read that one. So, okay, great. So he ordered it, he bought it, he got it. And it was like a light switch went off. I mean, he all of a sudden has been so industrious and coming up with these systems and these ideas. There's like he went to a whole nother level as a person on my team in the way he approached the business just from that book. So, yeah, if anyone has not, whether you're getting started or whether you're at an advanced level, Think and Grow Rich is definitely a very high priority book on many millionaires' bookshelves that I personally know. I'm guessing including your own, right, Saul?
Yeah, that's true. That's for sure.
Cool. So if you could go back to 2003 and give yourself the crown jewel of wisdom, knowing what you know now, what would that be, Saul?
Focus and stay in your lane. Especially, and what I mean by that is just in real estate, we have so many shining objects coming at us. And it always seems like other grass is greener. If you can have patience in real estate and stay your lane, you typically are guaranteed to win. As long as you can stay strong in your lane and keep enhancing the skill, not jumping from one thing to another thing. And I'm guilty of that a lot of times that I lost a lot of time and focus just by trying some other things that I thought are gonna work but actually didn't. So I think focus and staying in the lane is the key in real estate.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of our guests have said something very similar to that, and that shiny object syndrome that we all get, distracted by. Avoid that. Put the blinders on. Figure out somewhere you're making money. If that's rehabs, if it's, if it's rentals, like whatever it is, keep at it. I watched a guy who was doing well. He was flipping houses. He was doing it for years and years, Saul. And he watched us wholesaling. And, a few years back, before I was well-funded, before my team, a lot of the guys on my team started in real estate with me, who are, we started by wholesaling years ago when we didn't have the capital. And this guy who was flipping, and he had his capital structure, and he had money in the bank, and he had his contractors, and he knew that stuff. He was making money there. But he would watch us wholesaling all these deals, and all of a sudden he wanted to wholesale all these deals, and he just invested an exorbitant amount of money and didn't get the return, and didn't realize that we had developed, we had spent years figuring out how to wholesale to keep a volume going like that. Whereas really his side of the fence is kind of where I am now. I'm flipping these houses. My goal is to make $40,000. Anyone on my team, our goal is to make $40,000 or more by buying, renovating, and flipping a house. That's our ideal deal. That's our bread and butter right now. We still do some wholesaling to keep the machine fed, but like this guy kind of went broke by trying the other thing that looked shiny, looked like he thought we were setting the world on fire. Maybe we were all excited and we were so happy to be doing it. It just looked like fun. But I'm sure, I haven't talked to him in a little while, but I'm sure he's back on the other side, flipping a couple houses here and there. So keeping your focus and staying in your lane. If you got something that's working, figure out how to make it work even more. So in combination, I want to give you a chance to share some contact info if you'd like, but also if you'd like to make an ask of the audience, now is the time to do that.
Yeah, so if I may, I would like to ask the audience, for the guys who are in single family space, if you come across a commercial property, industrial warehouse, or mobile home park, and if you don't know how to value it, or maybe you think it's not a good lead for you, just send it my way, and I'll be able to pay you either referral fee or might be able to JV on that deal. My email is Saul, S-A-U-L, @call, C-A-L-L-Z like zebra, team, TEAM.com, and my cell phone number is 630-742-4065, 630-742-4065. So once again, if you have a deal, a commercial property that you don't know how to take down or you don't know how to evaluate it, just send it to me. And if it's a deal, we'll take it down and we'll pay either referral fee or GV on that.
Cool. Well, Saul, I appreciate you closing the door, taking this time to share this experience with our audience here. I appreciate you being in my network and for coming on the show. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. Awesome.
And thank you for tuning in to this episode of the REI Diamond Show. If you are interested in reaching out directly, please do so using the Contact Dan link at reidiamonds.com. I personally monitor and reply to all requests through that site. That's www.reidiamonds.com. Also at that site, you can check out the other 126 content-packed episodes on a variety of real estate investment topics, ranging from flipping houses to new construction, to flipping land, to buying hundreds and even thousands of multifamily units, and so on. The most common feedback I receive from my listeners is appreciation for my direct interview style delivered from my perspective as CEO of Diamond Equity Investments, a real estate investment company flipping between 150 and 200 deals per year. We're busy and we're blessed. If you'd like to leave me some feedback, you can go to iTunes or one of the other podcasts and leave a review. I definitely prefer you to choose the iTunes review as it kind of helps our rankings, and I appreciate that. If you're an accredited investor, we should talk. Our average fix and flip private mortgage investment opportunity deal pays 2 points and 10% interest and returns your capital within 6 to 12 months. And it's also secured by first position mortgage to a property worth 30% more than your capital contribution. If you're interested in discussing the details, contact me at reidiamonds.com, or to keep an eye out for upcoming private mortgage investment opportunities via email, go to www.fundrehabdeals.com and sign up today. You can keep an eye out for the emails with details on exactly what types of deals and returns are available. Oh, and I am always buying houses, so I am always looking for deals in Atlanta, Chicago, and Philadelphia. So if you have a deal, preferably one I can fix and flip, please send me details using the contact Dan link at reidiamonds.com. We'll also buy condos in addition to houses and multifamily apartment buildings. Keep an eye out for the next episode. I invited Zach Beach to discuss seller financed and lease option deals. Zach started at age 25 and in just 3 years has closed more than 100 of these deals. And these deals are unique because they're pretty much retail. Like if somebody brought me the average house and situation that Zach does his deals on, I'd pass because I assume it's retail and should just go with an agent. But Zach turns around and produces $50,000 to $100,000 profits on these deals without ever having to do any rehab. It's an interesting strategy to say the least. So you'll keep your eyes and ears peeled for that one. It will be good. We have reached the end, my friend. Thank you again, my loyal listener, for checking out this week's show. Dan Breslin here. I'll catch you next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the REI Diamonds Show with Dan Breslin. To receive email notifications of new weekly episodes, sign up at www.reidiamonds.com.